Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Crossover. Starring Josh Johnson and Chris McGill. Featuring Christina Thorson. And of course, you, the Instagram live chat. Now, sit back and enjoy this week's edition of The Crossover. Powered by Card Ladder.
Okay, today is Friday, July 7th, 2023, and it's the middle of summer. It's about 2 weeks away from the National. Josh, you got a lot of mail days. Do you have any this week?
No. I'm not allowed to have a mail day for a while. Says my bank account.
Yeah. Well, good, because I have two.
Nice.
First one is a 2021 Illusions Intriguing Players 1-of-1 Jokic. And the other is 2019 Prism Black Fireworks Luka insert 1-of-1. So, two quick PSA 10 1-of-1 mail days. Pleases the OCD.
So now you're in the Jokic realm of like buying anything of the M1-1s, kind of like you are with Luka and C-Mac.
Yes, I think I have crossed that threshold.
Because you've been,
and I haven't.
I believe you haven't done that yet until maybe recently.
No, but that's what happens when I'm just sitting on eBay and the stuff that I really want isn't showing up, and then I see something cool that I wasn't thinking about, and then I go.
You also get this feeling like you haven't had a mail day maybe in a few days, and you just get this urge like, I gotta buy something. This is.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I could sense that, but that second one is sick. You got quite a few Luka Blacks now at this point, don't you? I think you got 4 or 5.
Three Prism Black Lukas.
Nice.
All inserts. I wish they were the base set, but what can you do?
And you've got all the rookie golds, right? Except for the select, right?
For Luka, we have the Prism Gold, the Optic Gold, and then we have the Concourse Select Gold.
Right.
Yeah. They'll just base set stuff. Okay. Let's say, do we have any announcements? Maybe just a reminder to come see us at the National. Yep. Where will we be?
Right next to PSA grading.
We'll be right next to PSA grading, so probably we'll see a lot of you guys, whether you want to see us or not.
I was gonna say, I don't think they'll have a choice. They'll have to like scan their eyeballs past us, even if they don't want to.
And is there anything worth coming up to the table for, Christina? Besides asking questions or saying hello?
We will have charging at our booth.
Ooh, we will have charging.
So if you don't want to carry around the heavy Mophie in your sweatpants, come hang out with Card Ladder. We will have stools, like seats, and tables and charging.
Nice.
Well, it can be very disappointing for Justin's advice.
You know what? I listened to that and I was like, what can I do to ruin Justin's life? So
there you go.
What can I solve for the collector was what we went into how we're going to design our booth.
You're welcome, Justin. It's one of the questions we strive to answer is how can we ruin your life?
She's also going to have a stand with deodorant and like insoles for your shoes, just in case.
Nice. Yeah, that's good.
Cord ladder. I have some announcements from the app.
Let's go.
Let's go. All right, first up. This one was just me being let me turn the brightness up here. This was me being very annoyed using indexes where I would like sort something and I would just get all these indexes of like one card where the percent was really high just because that player only had one card. So I added filters now on indexes where you can go by sport. So I'll do basketball and you can do how many cards they have verified in Card Ladder. So I'll say a minimum of 100 cards. So I only want to see like the big boys. And I can say filter. And now I basically get whose index has changed the most in the last month of honestly like players that I care about. And so now you get a much more unique or much more like, worthwhile set of data to look at for research. So now it's like De'Aaron Fox, Nikola Jokic, Julius Erving, like names I kind of expect to see up here right now. Tim Duncan and Michael Jordan, that's pretty interesting. I can go reverse it and see who's dropped the most in the last month. LeBron. Jordan Poole, Zion, Kevin Garnett's kind of surprising. Darius Garland, Trae Young, nothing crazy. You can also do, who's gone down the most year to date. Trae Young, Steph Curry, Zion. These aren't surprising. Giannis, John Morant, Luka, LeBron. De'Aaron Fox and Jokic were really the big winners this year.
Nice.
So this is only basketball, only verified cards greater than 100. A lot more interesting things to look at. What do you think of this?
Love it. Absolutely love it. That is one of the things that like I had to train my brain to understand and overlook is that like, yeah, there's going to be these weird outliers because they only have a few cards or because like their prices were so low that if anything happens and their card goes from like $3 to $10, that's a huge percentage increase, even though it's only $7 nominally. So I love it. It's super helpful to be able to use this tool, more effectively.
I wish you and I would have had this, or I wish I had done this when we were on podcasts answering these questions, because it was always like we'd have to kind of scroll through the players we didn't care about. All right, next up, what's up, Drake's in the chat. Drake's episode with Carlson's card was great this week. I'll talk about that later, but what's going on, Drake? All right, sales history. If you click plus, you now get a little bit more helpful, useful way to submit. We were having some confusion with some of our users. So basically, if you want to submit a sale to sales history and we don't have the card in the ladder, you can still do so. If you go to sales history, click the plus, you now have two options. You've always had two options, but now it's more clear. You can either just give us the eBay item ID directly, or you can add a private sale. And if you do the eBay item ID, it's really simple. Put an ID, submit. And if you do a private sale, you just got to give us some information, the image, the price, the date, and then some notes so that when we reach out, we have some context. So hopefully that's more useful. And I also put both of these on the mobile app in preparation for National. So if you're out at the National, you do a private deal, snap a picture of the sale. If you want, put it on Card Ladder. We'll get them submitted each night while we're at the National.
Awesome. That is awesome. All right. That's great. Somebody asked if this will be the last crossover before the National. No, there will be two more crossovers before the National, the 14th and the 21st. So, sorry, Mohammed, to shoot on your question. Okay. Let's get to the first question from Stiff Arm Wax. He says, what did we think of Wembanyama's play-in NBA Summer League debut?
I'm so glad this isn't a Britney Spears question first.
Don't worry, that's coming up in a second.
Well, I want to hear you go first. You were what you sent me. I was pretty shocked to read that.
I love it. This is my favorite timeline, where Wembanyama was so hyped up, and it created this impossible baseline. And so if he did anything less than scoring 50 points on 80% shooting with 20 blocks, everyone was going to say it's a flop. And then not only did he not do that, but he only had like 9 points, 2 of 13 field goals. It was looking real dire until the 4-point play down the stretch. He got dunked on. He was falling over. He was turning the ball over. This is bait. This is so much bait for, the big brain ball knowers to sell out on their Wembanyama stock. And I love it because I don't like to be in agreement with the talking heads. I hate it when they're right. And I don't like to be in agreement with all the Twitter ball knowers either. So they all are like, they've lost some of their enthusiasm for Wembanyama. Let's just call it what it is. A lot of people are saying this is a flop. This is a big Summer League debut flop. I couldn't disagree more. I loved what I saw. I thought he showed everything, that I would want to see. I never bought into the hype, though. So my baseline was just 0. I had no expectations for what he would be. So then when I saw what he did tonight, saw the passing ability, saw the mobility, saw the team first attitude, saw the ability to help on defense and block, I loved what I saw. Will he be the player that the hype says that he is? The odds are very, very small. And he did nothing tonight to suggest he's going to be the best player of all time either, or even the best prospect of all time. But on a basketball level, starting at a baseline of not knowing anything about him, was super impressed with what I saw. And I love being in this position now where I don't have to agree with the hypesters. I'm going against them. That's where I love to be.
Do you remember the stats from LeBron's first summer league game?
I do not.
Oh, nobody does. That's no one's gonna remember the stats. 6 months from now, no one's gonna care. The real test is gonna be his first actual NBA game. But to your point, tonight just turned into like bait. That's all tonight is. It's just bait for the haters to come out and say, "I told you he's gonna be a flop. He's terrible." Dude, all these. This is his first. I was watching. The camera was basically on him all leading up to the game, right? Like he could barely stand in the hallway. He's so tall. His head's like hitting the lights. The cameraman were having a field day with that. He sat down to take a drink of his water, and it like spilled all over. He like missed the water. He was so nervous.
Yeah.
He was so freaking nervous. Like he's obviously never played in an environment like this with cameras all over his face and stuff. And he's what, 19?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm probably somewhere in between all the takes, which is just like I have no idea. Definitely has like the skill set. He had 5 blocks tonight. I messaged you about the pass. I thought was impressive. Like he did a little drop off dime. Obviously he's very tall and mobile and skilled. So I'm rooting for him, dude. I think maybe there's a question about this, but I'm rooting for him from the perspective of the hobby. I think we need it. We've had 2 really down years for rookie classes, and we need it. So I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, man. It'll never stop, but I wish that we could just set appropriate baselines for our fellow human beings and not, try to oversell them, oversell and underdeliver. But yep, that's never gonna happen. So.
But your take is basically like you saw some flashes of like stuff you've never seen from someone that tall.
I don't know if I've never seen it, but it was really impressive. I watched a few summer league games. I watched Denver versus Milwaukee for about 10 minutes, and then I was like, you know what? I could watch something of similar quality at the YMCA. So, it's just a pickup game. It's just a fast running, go to the corner, I'll cut to the rim, I'm either going to kick it out to you or I'm going to try and finish. It's just, but when Wembanyama stepped on the floor, the game bends to his will. It goes at his speed. He dictates the terms of the game. And what's impressive is that that's true on both ends. The guy was like, he could have had like 7 or 8 blocks, but they hit him with some really ticky-tack fouls, I thought. But yeah, no, it's just he made it feel like he elevated the summer league game to a professional level, and I think he's going to be much better because he looks to pass a lot, and he's more a team-oriented player. I think he's going to look a lot better when he's playing with NBA players.
Agreed. That was kind of why I made the joke about the summer league thing. It's like, yes, he's playing against inferior competition, but he's also playing with inferior competition. Wait till he gets like Popovich on the sideline, coaching staff running through the training camp and all that stuff, and he's got an actual system to play in. He's got good players around him. That's the real test.
Definitely. Something he said, bringing it back to the hobby, was that the last 2 years have had flat rookie classes from the hobby's point of view. And then the one before that, or wherever on the timeline the Zion and Morant rookie classes fall, even though those guys, when they played, have been amazing, they have had a lot of setbacks and disappointments that have, at this point in time, both of them have fallen short of their hype.
Yeah.
As well. And that's a bad situation too, where like you have a lot of people excited to collect players who could be all-time greats, and then things don't go so well, and that's followed up by a few years of really not super exciting draft classes. So what do you want to expound on that line of thinking?
Yeah. I mean, you could basically argue that the last true superstar we've had in a rookie class was Luka. I mean, Ja's shown flashes of it, obviously, but he's fallen off a cliff definitely in the card game with what's going on, and I think people are nervous about his injury potential with his sort of reckless play and some of those factors. And Zion, I don't need to get into that, but yeah, I mean, you can kind of make the case Luka's the last one that we really have to go back to and say this release of Prism or National Treasures is worthy because of one player, and that's usually what you look for in a draft class. Is there that one or two guys in the draft class that can pull people towards that product and towards that, collecting and buying wax and opening it, breaking and getting it out into the public and building collections. You guys even made a 2018 sort of side PC of hey, we want 2018 this and that, we want luck of the lottery, we like the 2018 LeBron Gold Prism. You've basically proved my point which is that the rookie class is very important to the heartbeat of the hobby. So I think if we have Wembanyama and I think it will really help. I do have a take on the whole Fanatics Wembanyama thing. I think it's really bad. I think Fanatics is actually going to lose money on that, even though they're the ones that signed him, because they're basically hurting their future prospecting of the hobby space, sort of rallying around this guy and having his true RPA. I think it really hurts the future of the hobby.
So you're saying that because we won't be able to have an NBA license, true RPA, or any NBA license Wembanyama rookie cards that have an autograph on them, that in the long run is bad for collecting?
Yeah, I would go so far as to say if I was Fanatics, I would have encouraged Wembanyama's camp to sign with Panini. I would have been Panini, do whatever you can. If we can help you get this deal lined up with him, I would have literally gone that far. And it sounds crazy because you're in business and you're competing, and that's sort of your natural instinct. But we're talking about a unique scenario where Fanatics is going to end up taking over those licenses, and it would be so much better if they took over a hobby in which the Luka Doncic version of this year's draft had an NTRPA. Would the boom have been as amazing and as high up as it would have been if Luka didn't sign with Panini? I could argue it would have been hurt. Yeah. It would have been a lot harder to get up that ramp,
Yeah, I love that take. I think that's an awesome take. I think we'll get into that topic on a different angle in a few questions here when we get to the question from AP Cards 23. So, all right, but we've got a few more Wembanyama questions. Collectogram says, what does Wembanyama need to average to appease the flip gods?
I mean, 35 and 10, I don't know.
Just think, what did he need to do tonight for people to be yeah, he is the best prospect of all time? He needed to have 40 points.
So if people start to really hate on him and he struggles his rookie year, is that just going to make you go harder on his stuff?
Depending on what I see, yeah. I mean, maybe that's the thing too. Is I've completely pushed the idea of collecting Wembanyama out of my head because his SI for Kids card is selling for thousands. So
the PSA 3, you see that one?
Right, exactly. Yeah, dude. I mean, that's the thing is that there is inevitably going to be a backslide on Wembanyama cards once the reality is forced to line up to the expectations. It's going to be inevitable, I think. So I don't think there's really anything he can do, even if he comes out of the gate. I mean, to appease the flip gods. Okay, so what that means is what can he do so that flippers can make money on short-term buying and selling of his cards? And I don't know. I think that bar has been set so high. I don't know if there's anything he can do. What if he came out and he won MVP and he won a championship in his first year? Maybe that's it.
Well, didn't Luka cards stay relatively flat his rookie year? I know that was sort of 2018 was a different time, but we didn't really see his cards explode until it was like 2019, 2020, where I was like, okay, this guy's actually for real.
Yep.
So, I mean, I wouldn't even be that discouraged if this stuff, inevitably will crater because, Bowman superfractors are going to sell for 500 grand or whatever. And that's we've seen that play out a million times. So we're going to see his cards go down in value no matter what, but I wouldn't be that concerned after 1 year.
Yep. All right. Stiff Arm Wax has another question, which says, hobby stock watch, two-part question. Is Wembanyama's hobby stock arrow pointing up, down, or sideways after his security guards viciously and brutally assaulted Britney Spears, parentheses, allegedly? And same goes for Tom Brady, hypothetically. Which direction will his hobby stock arrow be pointing if the rumors are true and he's dating Kim Kardashian? Hashtag, what are we doing here, TB12?
I hope he is joking around because these are hopefully these both have no effect on anything. That'll be great.
Yeah. Well, the Britney Spears thing, the video came out. I don't know. I don't really care. That this will be forgotten in a week. And then, but for Tom Brady though, there's a little bit of concern.
This one has you more interested.
Yes, there's a little bit of concern about what Tom Brady's post-playing years public life is going to look like.
Agreed.
Yeah, there's. I don't know. I don't know, Steve. I'm not sure how it affects card values.
Like he might be a douchebag? Is that what we're saying? Is that maybe what you're hinting at? Like the white party and the Kim K, and it's like,
I think that's in play. Yeah. I think the DB hypothesis is in play.
It's got the $1 million watches at the white party and
right. Yeah. No, I've never felt more grateful for Michael Jordan just fading into obscurity.
Or just like pictures of him sitting on a fishing boat, like with his silly remember he was wearing what are those called? Those they're not shorts, they're not pants. You know what I'm talking about? Like capri.
Where they go to capri.
Like I'm pretty sure I've seen pictures of him like wearing white capris on a fishing boat, just chilling with a cigar. That's the real path you need to take as a retired athlete. Just go fishing and play golf and stay out of the way.
Exactly. Because look, I'm not comparing Tom Brady to Charles Barkley at all. Like Tom Brady right now is Tom Brady's legacy right now is the greatest football player of all time. That's the top line billing on Tom Brady's tombstone, if you will, not to be morbid. But Charles Barkley's post-playing years career has come to define who he is. And it's led to people disrespecting how good of a basketball player he was.
Yep.
Because he's just known for being a burly commentator and a personality. And it's hard to imagine this guy having once been, the Zion Williamson of the early 90s.
Plus, no offense to Kendrick Perkins and JJ Redick and guys like that. We're used to sort of these guys that get into the media being, let's say, second-tier players. So, we just kind of lump Charles in, I think, with that. And it's like, no, he actually is definitely the best, guy that's moved into the media. And also, he's probably catapulted himself to be the top. And he's definitely he was an amazing player, top 30 or whatever you want to say, top 40.
Yep. Right. Okay. Question from Perimeter Collectibles. Is it fair to say that Victor Wembanyama already has more off-court concerns than LeBron has had over his entire career? I have a take on this.
I don't even know how to respond to that. What did he do to Britney Spears? Isn't it a security guard? He did nothing.
Yeah, no, he did nothing. But that's the heart of my take is that he has shown that he has a penchant for pop culture, for nightlife, for media, and he's going to be involved in more situations like this for sure. Just because he likes to be at the parties and he likes movies and he likes the film industry and he hangs out with Michael Douglas and just he has these like weird affiliations, and like if you look at his Instagram page is like it's not what you see from a professional athlete, where it's just professional athlete Instagrams are so generic, it's just like resharing the official team PR accounts post. No, his Instagram stories look like what you would expect a 20-year-old's like an influencer's social media post to look like. He's got like the 10 picture slides and pictures of his hotel room and him jumping over. He's different. He's gonna be much more visible and more involved in the public spotlight than other professional athletes are. So
he won't be. He's not posting like #grind of him by himself in a gym, just like sweating profusely. That's not him.
Not yet. I don't know if that's his style. Like his style is more just like vlogging or something. Like just and I think it's kind of cool that he does that. So like if you just go to his Instagram, like you go to his Instagram and you just kind of like look, like this is the post I had in mind, where he's just like, this is all one post. It's just like him just like documenting his life in New York and his freakishly long legs and like his and like look at that.
He is a teenager still, right?
Yeah. He's a teenager who's also like living his life on social media in a way that other teenage athletes don't do it. They don't do it like that.
Well, that the talking heads are going to start using this against him, right? Like, oh, he doesn't love the basketball enough. He's not in the gym enough. He's too focused on the nightlife. That's going to be a talking point.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. All right, enough with Wembanyama questions. First question on a new topic from Nas Productions. What is something that you love in the hobby that most hobbyists dislike or that is not cool?
Like buying the grade, not the card.
Nice. Okay, I like that. You're flipping that. Well, like the thing is that if somebody is a player collector or a team collector or a set collector, like if you collect something specific rather than spreading your interests around generically, you're collecting something that most people don't like. At least they don't like it enough to collect it. So like maybe the extreme example would be Christina with Maxi Kleber. There's a handful of people who like Maxi Kleber enough to collect them, but most
5 other people.
but
most people, whenever I post, say, "Why do you collect this guy?"
Right. So like everybody can relate to this if they have a player, team, or set PC, or like Nick's basketball PC says he likes retro cards. So that's another one. So on some level, like I feel this way with all my PCs, is that the majority of people are looking at it and they wouldn't have bought the same card that I bought. So that's kind of the whole experience of the hobby in a nutshell. It's like doing something that most of the other people in the community wouldn't have done. Every card you buy could be described that way.
Yep. Drake talks about that on the episode on Carlson's cards with Drew Brees a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to have to watch that. All right, I'm jotting down a title here. All right. AP Cards 23 says, appreciate you 3 hobby misfits. In the last crossover, Chris touched on that now more than ever, as collectors, we need boundaries and we need rules. This really spoke to me given the direction card producers seem to be heading, but also because of the simple fact that I'm finding, quote, buy what you love is still too broad. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on how collectors might apply some boundaries and rules to their collecting.
Yeah, this was kind of one of the bigger topics we hit on last week, and seems like it might bleed over into this week, but this is kind of top of mind for you, so I kind of want to hear you lead off. Like, I know this is important for you right now.
It is, and we do a lot of my collecting. I've had to come to the uncomfortable terms with is that it's based on sort of kind of like not very firm rules. Like the boundaries are pretty firm. Like I like to stick to playing years, and I like to stick to player and league licensed. So the boundaries have always been firm. But like when it comes to the rules, when it comes to like prioritizing among the big sea of available cards to collect for players, what I'll actually collect, I've never really formalized it. I've never made it concrete. I know that I prefer Prism to select. I prefer Prism to Optic, and I prefer Optic to select. I know that, but I don't like. There's also definitely an element of my collecting that's just like I'm surveying what's available, and then I choose what I like the best. Maybe sort of based on what it looks like, also kind of based on the product that it's coming from and my understanding of what prestige level that product has. But I'd love to get to the place where I'm able to come up with some really solid objective criteria that influence and instruct how I collect, and that give me a really firm ranking of where this item ranks on my priority list. And that can help me make more efficient decisions and be a more efficient collector. What do you think about this? About, how often do the rules of collecting impact whether or not you want to go for a card or not?
Yeah. Well, as you become more experienced in the hobby, this kind of becomes more second nature as you get into it. But you're sort of reaching for like a formal place where you can go look at the PER for this, because you like having that organized place with the Raptor rankings and the PER basketball reference for players, and we don't really have that. And anytime I got the sense from you that you actually were like retroactively looking back on this sort of middle finger graph of the whole hobby. That was kind of like one of your key takeaways as to why it happened. If we're doing the the look back, what's that called when you look back on what went wrong? It's like a tech thing. I always forget what it's called. Where you basically like what went wrong. Let's do a retroactive look and figure out what happened. You're kind of thinking that was like the number one reason, is that a bunch of new people came in and they had no freaking clue what to buy. Like they knew they needed to buy Jordan and Brady and all this stuff, but they just didn't know what. So they just thought, well, I see a bunch of these 86 Fleers. I see people on their top 100 lists. Like I guess I should just buy that in PSA 10. And as we know, that's fine, but there's more nuance to it in the hobby. That's like the most iconic card, and only in that it's the most, recognizable card. It's the one we sell the most. It's the one we're most familiar with the image. But if you're actually going to come into this space and want to be successful at it and have fun with it and collect, something that has more meaning, it's probably like 50th or 60th on the list. You know what I mean? And how would you know that coming into the space, brand new? So I think it was interesting to kind of think about it that way when you texted me that, this was kind of like one of your biggest reasons that we kind of went through this postmortem.
Yeah, no, I do feel that way.
Thank you. It's called a postmortem.
Yes, the postmortem is that I think one of the reasons for the bubble was that when so many new people sort of got interested or came into the hobby, they were only able to, the only cards they were able to understand that were available were the ones that were currently up for auction or currently available on a marketplace. Similar in, if this was the stock market and you were to look across an exchange and see all the things that are available, sort of that mentality is like, well, let me survey the landscape of available things that can be purchased. But with cards, the amount of things that are available at any given time versus the total landscape of cards available, it's tiny. It's absolutely tiny. So it's just there's not a precedent for somebody who's new to the hobby to come in and to understand the scope of what's available or the priorities in terms of demand. in terms of what's available. If you just sort of survey the landscape, and it would be reasonable to conclude like, okay, this is a decent sampling of what's available, but that's not how it works. It's the need for patience is the need for patience is really important. So yeah, that's it. It would be nice if, you know, and that's sort of like the way that relates is like, you can see that there's been a movement towards people who like first came in and maybe they were looking at like the 86 Fleer Jordan PSA 10 or the 96 Topps Chrome Refractor PSA 10 Kobe or the 03 Topps Chrome LeBron PSA 10 or like the Giannis Prism Silver or something like that. You know, like or like the 2000 Bowman Chrome Brady PSA 10, which got up to over 40,000. You know, like there was an appetite to spend a lot of money on nice cards, but they probably didn't know that they weren't even getting close to $40,000 worth of value out of that card, out of that Bowman Chrome Brady PSA 10. What somebody who had $40,000 to spend on a Brady was looking for was like a Topps Chrome Superfractor from his playing years. You know, a card that maybe has 10 total copies in existence that also would cost, like, Mission Street made a story post that showed that I think it was the 2015 Topps Chrome Superfractor Brady sold for like $27,000 not long ago. That's where somebody's spending $40,000 on a Bowman Chrome Brady PSA 10. That's what they were looking for. I want to believe. I tend to think they were looking for something like that, something that was. But instead of 40, they could. It's $27,000. And you have $13,000 left over. But, you know, how would they know? How would they know that?
Yeah, that's kind of the catch-22 though about the hobby is like you have all the money in the world. If you come in fresh, you're not going to be able to get that stuff that you're describing. It's like, yeah, sure, you'll get the one Superfractor that hits auction once a year or whatever, and you could find that and you could stumble into it, but then you're like, okay, where are all the other ones? You're like, oh, you know, they're spread out amongst these super collectors that'll never sell to me, and I feel stuck. So even if you do know and you do find the ranking of the top cards you should be going after, you know, that you feel are like the most important or whatever, it's still like tough to get that. It's still almost impossible to. You have to just kind of be in it a really long time, anyways. And we've always said that, you know, you can't just really like force someone to get into the hobby or give them the elevator pitch. Like, here's why, because at the end of the day, you're still going to have to be in it day to day for several years to come close to building some of these collections that you're aspiring to.
Totally. And then there's AP brings up another idea, which is that in the ultra modern era, the idea of buying what you love is too broad.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so like I remember as a 90s collector that one of the most exhilarating parts of being a 90s collector was like going out and finding the insert set that spoke to you, you know, because most of those inserts only ran for 1 or 2 years and that was it. And the supply of stuff is limited enough in terms of how many different brands and products and sets and parallels that exist in the 90s that like you could pick and choose and have a realistic chance that like maybe you are finding something that's a diamond in the rough, like, and maybe it will one day have a spotlight on it. But and so like that's sort of where I think buy what you love is really a philosophy that has a good home, is in collecting 90s. I think it works. But collecting ultra modern, it starts to get risky, because I can tell you from collecting Christian McCaffrey one-of-ones that there are a ton of awesome products. There's a lot of them. And there's a lot of sweet parallels and a lot of sweet inserts.
Yeah.
And it almost starts to feel sometimes like there's so many that we're close to being like, if I just collect what I love, I might be finding I might not be finding diamonds in the rough. I might just be finding the rough.
Yeah.
That's it. And then I think it's going to get even more it's going to get even more risky or fraught when, you know, you have like a Wembanyama situation.
Yep.
Where like there's already a half a dozen non-NBA licensed cards out there, let alone all the stuff that's going to come out during his first year.
I have a really good example of why collect what you like or collect what you love is it's fine in theory. It's a great, you know, starting point. It's a good thing to talk about and say in the hobby. But where it's not like a perfect science and it can't always work. You remember when you and I talked a lot about like what are the sets to go after for modern Panini players? Like we had talked about it for Luka and C-Mac, and I was like really pushing on you to get the cracked ice auto of McCaffrey, the true one, the variation A and a PSA 10. I was like, you got to get this one. So what if you came to me and you're like, I really like cracked ice and I just want to get a second year optic contenders cracked ice Christian McCaffrey? I would have been like, dude, stop messing around. If you like cracked ice, that's great. Now that I know what you like, you know, we can kind of hone in on what you actually should be going after within that sort of, you know, category that you enjoy. And I was like, dude, if you like cracked ice, you got to get the regular contenders. It can't be optic. You got to get it in PSA 10, and you got to get the variation A. And you're going to be so much happier a year from now when you have that versus like the 6 other cracked ice that added up to the same price. Do you know what I mean? So it's fine to say collect what you like. Go buy 6 cracked ice cards. They look cool. You're having fun. You can tell people they're undervalued. But really, like the true one of that, the top brand, you know, the non-reprint optic contenders stuff that I don't really understand. The true variation, the main one, like that's what's going to end up making you happier long term that you have that in your collection, because you have this like crosshair of like, okay, you've hit what you like, but it also has crossed through like what is an important card in the hobby and an important grade in my opinion. I think that one's what, like a pop 2 or something. Like you've got like a top 10 rookie CMAC card just because you focused in on that specific one.
Yep, totally. That's always the compromise that I'm looking to make, or maybe a better way to put it is the sweet spot that I'm looking to find is the combination of a set or a parallel that's got history and importance and carries weight in the hobby that also looks good, that appeals to me, that I like, you know, and if it can check more boxes, like it's a rookie card or it's the first instance of something, or
Right.
it's extremely limited, it's a one of one, and then especially if all that stuff can come together.
Yep. Yeah. You just start knocking off all these things that increase your enjoyment out of that card. You know, the fact that it's a safe brand, you know, it's a PSA 10, it's the scarcest, it's numbered to 23. There's all these different things that kind of like you can keep checking off boxes that make you feel happier about the card.
Now, what is it about, just to like flesh this out, what is it that makes the variation A PSA 10 cracked ice?
Oh, that's such a great question. The answer is boundaries. You got to pick one. We need boundaries, dude. If you don't have one that we all agree is the main one, the A, like it literally is called A for a reason, right? It's like the variation A. Like the manufacturers have told you this is the primary one, and the other ones are called variations. So if we don't have these terms and these boundaries, then what do we have? We just have chaos.
Yep, exactly. So it's going to be, go ahead.
I love that the chat is like, you know, saying, yeah, you're just telling us to be a snob. You're just telling us to buy the expensive one. That's like the crappy advice, but it's fine. I just think, you know, if you're trying to build the best collection, if that's your goal, you're trying to build collecting, collect what you like is great. It's a great start. It just so happens to be one factor out of many.
Yep. Yeah, and it's tough because you have to make, for this theory to completely make sense, we have to step outside of just our own interests as individual collectors. I would love to be in a world where I get to, you know, decide what the best cards are based on what I like and what my tastes are and so on and so forth. Yeah, I'd love to live in that world. But we're coming up against a situation now where we might be approaching a real junk wax, junk slab, junk everything era. And when an era like that descends upon us, it's incumbent upon us to push back on the manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
It's incumbent upon us to set those, because the manufacturers, the limits of the market are no longer setting those boundaries for us. The market is no longer saying, like, look, here's 15 basketball products, and each one is going to have 2 to 3 parallels to the base set and 3 to 4 insert sets. And that's going to be the whole world of what you can collect. And your player might be in 1 or 2 of those insert sets, and then they'll have, so like over the course of a season, if you've got 15 products, your player maybe shows up in 20 to 25 insert sets, most of which will not have a parallel. And then your player will have maybe 2 to 3 parallels to 15 different base set cards. And that's the whole world of what you collect is limited to that. Okay, so you're talking about maybe, let's just say an average of 2 parallels, and out of 50, so you're talking about 30 parallels plus 15 more base cards, that's 45 cards, plus 20 inserts, that's 65 different cards, all right? For a whole season. That's roughly back of the envelope math. That's what it was like collecting a player who has, what it is like collecting a player who has cards in the 90s. For one season, you've got 60, 65 total cards. Today, a player could have 65 different cards in one product. And then basketball has 30 different products per year. So if you're trying to collect Luka, like we do, and you feel the onslaught of supply as each season goes by, as each month, as each week passes. Here's another, product that has 10 different Lukas. The base set has 15 different parallels, 3 one-of-ones, and then he's in 4 different insert sets. In those insert sets, some of them have a parallel to 25, into 10, into 99, and one-of-ones. And by the time it's just a flood of supply. And so what's the way, and it looks like it's only going to increase. And especially in the Wembanyama era, for people who are looking to collect rookie cards of Wembanyama, it's only going to increase. And so in that situation, the response that collectors can take, and the best response that I've been able to think of, is that we have to have rules where we say, we're going to limit the scope of what's permissible to collect for our collection, so that, but the only way those rules work is if they're logically consistent.
Mm-hmm.
If they're totally subjective, then in a certain sense they're whimsical, and our opinions can change. And like this year we like this, but the next year we like this. Or if I say, hey, look, this is the best card, and someone else comes along and says, no, it's not. This is, and we have no way to adjudicate it. We have no way to decide. But if we can come up as our own collectors in our own worlds, if we can have logical rules that we can apply to our collecting, that's my goal. That's the best response I've been able to come up with for how I can push back against the risk of overproduction in junk wax.
To take it a step further, the reaction might be, well, why don't these card companies just like create less parallels and just focus on these ones that we're talking about? Just listen to what we want on the rules and just zoom in on those and screw everything else. I would actually push back on that and say, like, I don't mind having all this stuff to choose from, because it gives me, if I walked to my backyard and every rock in my backyard was a diamond, I wouldn't give a fuck about diamonds. But the fact that I could actually have something to chase for, and it builds this sort of hierarchy and ranking system, it just makes the stuff at the top that much more special and stand out more. So do you think that's, a lot of people are like, yes, forget the elephant skin, the tiger stripe stuff, but like that, the more you add, it's like the more awesome the gold prism gets, because that stays, consistent at 10 print run. So like that card just kind of gets like more special, like as more people spend money on other things.
Totally. Yep. Yeah, okay. If you don't have anything else, I think that we'll continue to develop this topic and this line of thinking.
Yeah.
If you don't have anything else on this topic, we'll go on. Okay. Drake's PC says, as I search for Peyton Manning and Drew Brees cards for my PC, I find
Get people to sell them for
I find that many of them already reside with their end collector. What qualities of Hall of Fame or future Hall of Fame players and cards lend them to finding their way to end collectors versus others that might continue to be passed around? So as examples, there are several Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James cards that continue to be passed around that would never go past me as a collector if I collected them.
Well, he said the answer in that podcast. He said something along the lines of like, a few of the Drew Brees cards I have, I've built these like sets and I have some parallels and stuff, and like some I may be overextended and I don't really need those anymore, but there's no point in me selling it because it would not change my life. It doesn't change me enough. Like, I'm not able to sell one of these Drew Brees cards and then go ahead and like turn around and buy something I want way more. Whereas with the LeBron, MJ, those types of guys, those cards generally, he said like he was going for I think it was like a Shield Breeze, and he traded away like a more basic card to trade it of Russell, Kobe, and I forget the third player, but it was like, yeah, those three guys, they move around more, they sell more because a lot of their cards have a higher floor. It's worth it more to people to be able to sell them to move into other items that are more scarce. So the end user thing, it's more sticky with the lower end players, and Breeze obviously isn't like a lower end player, but you know what I'm saying. It's more sticky because it's just not worth it to those people that own them to move them. Like they would just rather have the card.
Yeah, absolutely. The way that I was kind of thinking about this too is that I think smart flippers are going to target the players who have the most end users, because ultimately you're going to have the largest pool of people to offload the card to. But sometimes cards get stuck into the flipper's vortex, and flippers just continuously sell it and buy it. Not the same flipper, but flippers will send it to Golden or something, and then a different flipper will buy it and put it on eBay, and then a different flipper will buy it, and they're all relying on comps, but none of those comps reflect what an end user wanted to pay for the card. The comps reflect what a flipper thought an end user would be willing to pay for it at some point. And that's how cards get stuck in the flipper's vortex. And that's how markets can just get out of control. When you just got flippers bidding for cards as opposed to end users setting the value for cards, and then flippers, once upon a time there was a world where the art of flipping was like finding the card in an obscure place and then bringing it to collectors who would be willing to pay a premium because they can't find it themselves.
Yep.
So that's the value that the flipper was bringing. But if all the flipper is doing is going in one Facebook group, buying the card, and taking it to a different Facebook group and listing it for sale for a few $1,000s more, it's hard to see where the value add is for the end user.
Yeah, the flipper has been sort of bastardized, to your point, in the last few years, to where it's now like this sort of, garage sale find, or it used to be like this garage sale find, and you get it to the end user, but now it's turned into like this sort of more crypto thing where it's like, oh, I'm just buying and hoping to sell it more to the next guy. And his example in the Drake, it's funny you brought that up, because Drake, for that card I just mentioned, the Shield, he knew someone had it and he was going to meet them at National and buy it. The Wi-Fi was bad, so it took a while for that guy to respond, and by the time he did, he's like, oh, sorry, I already sold it. Who'd you sell it to? This guy. Message that guy. Oh, sorry, it's too late, I already traded that. Oh, I traded this guy. Okay, this guy, he's willing to sell it. And so Drake, like, in his mind is like calculating the percentage that he's going to have to pay more than what he was originally going to pay, because each of these guys inflated at 10%. And he's like, oh my God, I'm the end user and I'm going to have to pay 30% more because it went through three hands. And that kind of like illustrates your point of Drake's the one that wants the damn thing, and now because it's touched 3 people's hands, he's got to pay 30% more just because those guys need to make their margins.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. To the other kind of point here that Drake's making about, like, there's sort of like a struggle with collecting a player whose cards are in the hands of end users, and even if one of those end users kind of wants to sell it, they'd prefer to have the card than go through the effort of selling it for the market value.
Yeah.
That's why, like, it will not end well for me financially. I can make that bold proclamation today. But that's one of the great things about collecting a player like McCaffrey, is that he doesn't have a lot of end users, but his cards are worth enough money that people will take the effort to sell them.
Yeah.
So it's like this sweet spot where it's like I'm not really competing against many people for them, but I also don't have to worry about these cards being locked away and, I have to beat down the door of these other collectors to be able to pick them up. It's like, no, it's like they're worth enough that people will sell them, and there's not many people looking to compete for them. So, like, but by the same token, I'm saying right now, I'm not necessarily advocating to collect players like that because it will not end well financially for me. But it is one of the things that I've noticed. A funny little quirk of collecting McCaffrey is that he falls in that gray area where, like, his cards are worth enough to bring him to market, but he's not desired enough as an athlete that I have a lot of competition for his cards.
Yep. There was a point at which I think Austin asked Drake something along the lines of the question that Drake always asks us, like, how come I can't get this guy to sell at the price that makes sense? I'm the one that wants it. You're just trying to make, you know what I mean? That question he always has. How do I get someone to sell me a card at the proper value? And Drake was like, he kind of chuckled and was like, oh, yeah, that's like a running joke on the crossover. And I was very relieved to know that he also knows it's a joke and he's not seriously asking that every week. So I feel better that he's in on the joke and he's not on the other end of the joke. Good job, Drake.
Good job indeed, Drake. I'd be pretty fucked up if he didn't know.
When we see him at National, he's like, why won't you guys just answer the question?
All right, we have another question from Drake that's going to shift topics for us. He says, I, like many others, have posted my want list for the National. Unfortunately, I don't have any deals lined up so far. What other avenues do you recommend to get the word out about cards that are on your want list for the National?
I haven't really ever seen that work to much great success, because when you're out at the show, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of things you're distracted by. There's people, there's cards. It's really, really hard to, like, see something and stop and be like, let me look through everyone's want list and see if anyone, you know what I mean? Like, it's not you. If I see a Breeze and a Manning, I'm going to think of Drake, but it's not because he posted a want list the week before. It's because I just know I've seen enough of his stuff. It's like burned into my brain. So I don't know that like the want list specifically will ever work. Nobody has time to, like, go check everyone's want list when they see something. It's more just going to be like, we know what you want, Drake. We know you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to make a small confession here. Whenever I see a want list on an Instagram story or anywhere, man, I ain't reading all that shit.
Exactly. That's what got my point. It's like, I said it in a little bit nicer way.
You did. You said it in a much nicer way. But with that said, just because I'm a lazy POS, not everybody is, all right? There are some people who will take the want list super seriously. There are some people who love it. They will have want lists, and, like, when they go to tables, they'll look for it and stuff. I know that those people exist. I wish I was a good enough human being to be one of them.
This is probably the most requested thing I get asked to build technology-wise in the hobby, is, like, a way to digitize cards at the National, and a way for, like, people at the show to find it quicker and people outside the show to, like, see it, So.
Yep.
That's probably what we're actually talking about. Instead of a want list, it's more of like how do we digitize all the cards that are at the National physically. But I think that takes away from a lot of the fun of it, to be honest. Like, when he first asked that question, my answer was like, go yourself to National and literally go to every single table and look at every single card and do like laps until you're feet fall off, and then look at everything. Then you'll find it. You don't need a want list. You just find it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, what other avenues do you? So, like, in terms of like other avenues for helping to get the
Craigslist,
word out. He's like Craigslist.
like newspapers,
Yeah. Okay.
maybe like
once was an eBay
commercial, like radio ads, radio spots, TV ads.
There once was an eBay feature that not only, I mean, obviously you can list your cards for sale. Once upon a time, eBay let you put in want ads for cards also. But yeah, I think I would tend to agree with your advice. Like the way the cards have found me was just people know that like the players I collect, and then if they see something, they just send it to me. Like that's how find stuff.
You know what most companies do in this, and when they're struggling to like get the word out and market, they just partner with the sleaziest influencer they can find and like have them post content for them. So that maybe is what you should do, Drake.
All right. Cards are for nerds. Says, I'm going to my first national. Will there be crazy lines at the tables? Can I sit at the $1 boxes without being elbowed or rushed?
So we're just gonna let that amazing dig I just had go by. That's fine.
I cannot build on it. I just want it to live.
I'm glad that Christina said LMAO. All right. Lines at tables. It's crowded, but there's not really like a line. It's more just people just kind of crowd around. It's gonna be crowded, dude. One of the other questions you have later is this gonna be the biggest national ever? I'm on that bandwagon. You can get on it with me, or you cannot. I don't care. You can be one of those. It's like, oh, the '90s were bigger no matter what. We didn't have ways to track it. It was always bigger. I think this is gonna be the biggest national ever.
Okay, that's in response to Mike Pinkerton's question as well. Which is, will this be the biggest national?
It's gonna be packed.
So
it's gonna be lines.
Is it something to worry about? Like, I guess even if, I'm not sure what the end goal is of this question. So the question is like, will there be crazy lines? Can I sit at the box without being elbowed or rushed?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be bumping into people for sure. And yeah, there probably will be multiple tables where the dealer's talking to one person. There's 3 or 4 other people who want to talk to him next.
Was your first national like physically overwhelming with how many people were there?
No, but I could see how it could be.
Yeah. I think this one's going to be, if this is your first national, you're going to be like, oh my God, where did all these people come from? And I didn't know this many people collected, 3x2 pictures of athletes.
Well, yeah, if you want to see something funny, make sure you're there a few hours before the doors open, just so you can see when the doors open how people literally run. they come through the door and they start running to wherever it is they're trying to get to.
I mean, this is like this is our Super Bowl or whatever. This is and a big part of it, I got to say, for those of us that have kids and families and stuff, like this is kind of our vacation. Most of our vacations are, Disneyland with the kids and trips with the family. This is like the only time of year where for the most part, it's, men, but it's a woman with a family or a man. It's like, this is your time to get away from your family in a lot of cases. And this is like your, time to let loose and have fun and do something kind of, dorky. This is your hobby. This is your side thing. And it's time to like let loose and have fun. So there's going to be a lot of energy and a lot of people and a lot of traffic. So expect that.
All right. PLB Card says, how should I handle it if my national hotel roommate is Jackin, JCKN, parentheses, listening to Crossover, too loudly while I'm trying to sleep? Well, first of all, it's a great question. You shouldn't have any roommates. I think we've been over this.
I was going to see if you took it that way. But
I can answer this because you listen to podcasts too loud every freaking night.
Well,
You have to go to sleep before them. That's the only answer.
That's the only thing I do too loud?
Only answer for you is you get in bed before they get back. You fall asleep so that when they return to the room, and start playing their podcast super loud, you're already sleeping and it doesn't bother you.
There's some pro advice.
As you know, over the last few weeks, I will be jacking it in the bathtub of my hotel room because that is the spot. If you're sharing a room with many people, the bathtub is the secret location you're going to want. So the answer to that question is go to the bathtub and have your space.
Yep. I think that's the right answer. I've got nothing to add. All right. The Mellow Collection says, last week I acquired my grail, but I had to sell off about 90% of my collection to get it. Part of me thinks that I made the right choice because it's one of Carmelo's best cards. But the other part of me feels like I made a mistake since a lot of those cards I got rid of took me a long time to acquire and to curate. Have you ever given up a massive chunk of your collection for one card? And if so, how did it turn out?
Who is this?
This is the Mellow Collection. And I'm going to pull up the card.
Okay. I feel much better now because I've seen him post stories of like amazing cards for sale, and I'm like, what is going on? Why is this guy selling all these awesome Mellows? His name is the Mellow Collection. Stop! But now I feel better knowing he bought one awesome card. What do you know what it is?
Yes.
Show the card. Oh.
So this is a 2003 Exquisite Collection, number pieces autograph, numbered to 15, and his caption says, had to sell a ton of my Mellow collection to get this, but at the end of the day, buying cards that you enjoy and eventually moving on from them to acquire something special is what it's all about.
I mean, I'm a big fan of this. I don't know what 90% means in terms of like 90% of the value or 90% of like the volume, because I'm hoping that he was able to, I'm hoping that 10% he kept was like his top 10%, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But man, what a card. I mean, that's amazing. I hope he can get some of the other stuff back. I've seen the one he's trying to sell. Don't sell that one that you're trying to sell right now. I see he's like, I'm trying to sell it again. Don't, just take out a loan or something.
It didn't work well for a lot of people, Josh.
We do not advocate loans on cards.
Sell your car or something, man. Sell it. Downgrade to a Honda. I don't know.
Start eating ramen.
Okay. So what do you say about this, though, in terms of what can you say? Is it in the long run, is it worth it to have moved a bunch of stuff to get the yes?
Yes. I've done it. I've never done a 90-10 like that. I've never done a move that big. Like we talked about the whole, like, would you sell everything for a green PMG MJ? And, you know, you say you would, but I don't know if you actually would, and you never really had the chance. So we've done more of like, you know, sell the bottom 20% of our collection to get a card, and that would be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite old pieces of advice is that once you moved on from cards, despise those cards.
But the stuff that you're telling him to despise is very similar to that one you're looking at right there.
Right. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's tough, you know, but despise what you cannot have, my friend.
I don't agree. Get some of those back. I love those cards he's selling. I don't want him to sell. I want him to keep them all. I love it.
It's never going to be perfect either. Like, that's one thing that just, you're never going to have the 100% right outcome. Either you're going to have a larger collection, but always dream about, man, what if I had that grail of all grails caliber card? But on the other hand, if you get that grail, then there are going to be moments where you're like, man, I wish I had my more well-rounded, broad collection to enjoy once in a while too.
Well, if you think of this hobby as a marathon, which I've said that many times, I think you can have both. It's just a matter of like making the right movements timing wise to pull cards in when they make the most sense, and then picking the right spots to keep them there permanently. And I think if you play all those movements properly, you can end up with having your top X amount of grails plus having a really nice foundation and broadness, like you said.
Nice. Okay. The 615 collector says, what do you do when a card you own is selling for a price that you think you should take, but you don't want to sell the card. Do you sell and try to buy back later, or do you just hold on and let whatever happens to the price?
Isn't this like a, it depends on the card kind of answer?
Yeah, absolutely, because there are some cards that might not ever come back around.
Yeah, it's really like what's the print run of that card? If it's like 50, sell it. You probably get it back. If it's 1 and you really like it, then don't. It's kind of a boring answer.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's totally fair. The bubble created a new phenomenon in the hobby. And that phenomenon was cards losing 50, 60, 70% of their value in a very short period of time. That had happened before. Like it would happen to prospects who didn't pan out, or it could happen when you have like a brand new release and the excitement for it wears off. But it wasn't like endemic. You could understand pretty easily why it was happening.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like as somebody who from like 2016 to 2020, I was like focused on Michael Jordan cards. Yeah, once in a while one would sell for less than the previous comp, but in the majority of cases, it was just like a gradual uptick. If it was a pretty rare Jordan insert or a pretty rare Jordan parallel, then one sells and another one sells 3 or 4 months later, and it's usually a little bit more. And then one sells a few months later, and it's a little bit more. And then a few months later, maybe it takes a small step back, but then the one after that maybe takes a big jump up. So the bubble of the pandemic era introduced something that I think many Michael Jordan collectors, myself included, were not expecting or were not used to, which is that like, hey, Michael Jordan cards can take a 50, 60, 70% bath, and it can happen in 6 months. That can happen. And then it did happen. So I look at this question and I say, one of the factors that I would think about here is like, is the card showing signs of being in a bubble? Looking back historically, because we know what a bubble in cards looks like now. Is the card in a bubble, or is it, in other words, like we have some things to point to suggest like, hey, this card you might have a chance to get back at a cheaper price down the road. Does it match the criteria? Does it look like what other bubbles we've seen look like? Because if so, then yeah, you probably do have a decent chance of getting it back.
Much better answer.
Okay. All right, Yamwax. Welcome back, Yamwax, to the crossover family. He says, which NBA prospect, past or present, would you compare the new social media app Threads to?
I don't know anything about Threads. Do you have a elevator pitch for me on Threads? Have you tried it? Do you know anything about it?
Okay, let me try to make the most positive case for Threads that I can. It's extremely easy to set up. All you have to do is just click a button from your Instagram account, and it loads in your information for you. And other than that, it's a completely stripped down Twitter. It's just basically, it's a feed that has the things that people are typing into Threads, and that's it. I can't make a list. I can't join Twitter Spaces or an equivalent. It's just it's a pared down, stripped down Twitter with a nice clean interface and very easy to connect and get your followers. They've like built some ways to bring your followers in, but functionally it's just it's a more basic version of Twitter.
So why do I keep seeing stories on Instagram of like a screenshot of a thread with like a stupid Thread logo behind it? Why does that keep happening?
Because I think there's a feature in Threads that lets you make a thread or a tweet equivalent, and then once you've made it, there's a button that lets you just send it directly to your Instagram story. Which
is like completely worthless to me. I can't interact with it. I just see it and I'm like, great, there's a screenshot of your Twitter. That's like what I see it as.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
What am I getting? I don't understand it.
I don't get it either, man. I guess a few people. Well, first of all right, here's the prospect, Anthony Bennett.
Jesus Christ.
All hype, but very, very little substance so far. And also, like, I'm not like, I already have Twitter. Why would I support the another version of Twitter? Like, I've already put the work in on Twitter.
This is the real thing.
What is Threads adding to the experience that Twitter doesn't have? How is it making it better? Unless and until that question can be satisfactorily answered, it's just all hype.
Oh, it's I'm assuming that the pitch would be if you already have like a big Instagram community, it would be easier to jump into that than it would be Twitter and like rebuild that following. Is that true?
I think it is true. I think that's true. And I also think it has been pointed out to me that another use case for Threads is like it's like a gold rush of the 1800s. You know, it's like a gold rush, right? You can be the first person to get on Threads and build up this whole new following, and you know, you can make this name and lane for yourself. Yeah, on Threads, you can do it fast.
Here's the real take, and I'm not gonna let us move on topics until I get this out because you're gonna cheer wildly and Christina's gonna laugh. This is just Zuckerberg being like, shit, I really fucked up that metaverse thing and nobody gives a shit. I should probably just copy Musk and build Twitter. Is that the 90-second version of it?
I guess so. I mean, I don't know why he made this. I really don't.
I just told you.
I mean, I guess, but I mean, it's like, you know, what? It's like another marketplace in the hobby.
Haven't other like people tried to make like Twitter in the past, like after Twitter? Like, haven't people tried to like redo Twitter and it's failed? Like, why does he think he can redo it?
Because he's running out of ideas. You know, he fucked up metaverse. I'm telling you. He's like, the board is like, metaverse is stupid. Nobody wants it. You spend $10 trillion on it. You rename my company after it. Make something different. And he's like, well, I don't like Musk right now. I want to fight him, so I'll just make Twitter.
Right. Yeah, I'm right now. I'm out on the Threads hype.
But someone said his time. I did read that his timing is decent because people are mad at Twitter about this whole restriction thing. Do you know about this?
On Twitter?
Yeah, there's like some new thing that came out that people don't like.
Yes. So one of the things that's been going on Twitter, but I don't think it's continuing anymore. But there was like a week where you could only view so many tweets before Twitter stopped you. And ostensibly the reason for that was Twitter was trying to prevent scraping. Yeah. Which is like, you know, I mean, come on, man, everybody's getting scraped. Like,
excuse me.
I'm just saying.
Not everyone.
Yeah.
It's illegal to scrape things behind the paywall.
Yep, it is. But it seemed like a really brutal response, you know, to like it really pissed people off. It made people's Twitter experience miserable. Now, I thought I used Twitter a lot. I never triggered the restriction. So I don't know how much these people are using Twitter. We're hitting these restrictions.
Dude, I can barely muster up the energy to like make a story post on Instagram. Now there's no way I'm ever gonna like make a TikTok and a fucking MySpace, Twitter thread post. Like there's no way. Just too many.
One thing I have done though is I have reserved my own Threads username and account so that I own the username. So that so that's probably not a bad idea for anybody who wants to do it. And it is really easy to transfer over the people that you follow and who follow you. To Ankesh's point that Instagram has like 2 billion users. So, you know, it's really easy to carry your network over from one to the other.
And Threads got like 30 million users in the first day, so that's the new AI. That's the new ChatGPT. ChatGPT is already dead. Now Threads is the new like reigning champ of fake users. This is great.
Yeah, right.
That's such an inflated number though, because every other social media in like the history of social media has started from zero.
Christina's like leaning back in her chair right now talking like this. She can't even turn to face. She's like just over her shoulder.
What was that? You sent me an article about some tech thing that was like 90% of their users are fake.
Oh, dude, there's been numerous instances of startups having gigantic fake user bases and taking venture capital and getting caught.
Not in a hobby, though, I'm sure.
No, there's no coughing sounds I could make that would make you think of any startups that.
Right. Okay.
And then, did you see the article I sent you where Tom Brady? That's why you said that. That's why you said it. Tom Brady lost $30 million on FTX. What an idiot.
That's a tough L. Just to chill for some crypto marketplace.
That's like a year's salary in the NFL.
I believe that 30 million is the sum total of his 3 final season salaries combined.
Woof.
Plus, he divorced Giselle, who she was making more money, so like maybe he's getting alimony from her potentially. But that's also that's all, folks. That might also be why he is dating Kim K.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he can only afford white shirts and white pants now.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's go on to this next question here. We have still plenty more to get to. Sasha P. Cards says, what are your takeaways from the historical vintage basketball auction last night? So I've expanded these results. You can't even read this anyway, but one of the big takeaways from PWCC's vintage premiere last night was the sale of this Pop 2 1970 Topps Pete Maravich rookie PSA 10. Sold for $552,000. And there have been other sales of 1969 and 1970 Topps basketball cards. So like here's another one. This is 1969 Topps Walt Frazier PSA 10. I don't know the population offhand, but the card sold for one. There we go.
Yes.
Sold for $252,000. Also last night was this 1969 Topps Oscar Robertson PSA 10, also Pop 1. Yeah. Went for $186,000. And yeah, we can just keep on going down the line here. Here's a Jerry West PSA 10, 1969 Topps Pop 1, sold for $180,000. So,
yeah. So like a bunch of those 69 Topps PSA 10 sold on the PWTC Weekly recently. So it's pretty obvious to me that someone had a bunch of these and sent them all to auction at once. They picked some to go in Weekly. The ones in Weekly sold for like 50 to 80 grand. And they're like nobody named players I've never even heard of in some of them, and they're selling for 50 grand because they're Pop 1. And if you look back at that 1969 Topps, I was looking through some of those old vintage sets, and you know how you go from 57 to 61? You have this like jump. You basically like and then you go to like 69. There's not many sets where you can get a Jerry West vintage card in a PSA 10. This is like the first one you could get other than like the 61 Flair. It's just like I was more fascinated by just how insanely rare these Pop 1s are for these players. You know, it's like you're talking about all the parallels and stuff that modern players have. Dude, if you want to collect PSA 10 Jerry West cards or Oscar Robertson, you got like 4 choices, and one of them, and they all sold like in one night. It's nuts. And it's like a bunch of those are rookies. The Walt Frazier's a PSA 10 Pop 1 rookie, similar to the Julius Erving PSA 10 Pop 1 rookie. Those are insane cards.
Yeah, they are. Those are really awesome cards. Yeah, I mean, like, I just kind of scrolled the list, and, like, it is funny that these were showing up in Weekly at first, and then they got moved over.
Well, because they thought, like, someone sent in the whole lot, and they thought, well, we'll put these ones in Weekly because these players are lesser-known guys, and then we'll put these guys in the Premier because it's West and Oscar. Yeah, see, this guy. What did that sell for? Like 50 grand?
84 grand.
Yeah. What the fuck? It's because it's a Pop 1 rookie. And it's like, you need the set? This is it, boy. This is your chance.
Yep. 1969 Topps Kevin Lowry? Pardon my ignorance here.
So I saw that sale, and I saw those cards on premiere last night. I was like, these ones are going to go for 150 to 200 because this dude's selling for 80.
Yep. So, what about takeaways? What do you think about this?
Takeaways? I don't know. I'm like starting my train of the hobby is going to start uptaking. National's going to be big. I want to be the first one to be on that train, and if I'm right, then I'm going to look smart, and if I'm wrong, it's fine. I'll just keep doing that train. So that's where I'm at with it. I'm happy to start that, and it can be like this hype beast thing if you want, but I'm looking at it more empirically from at the data, and some of the cards that I'm seeing sell for less. I'm looking at the monthly volume sales. I'm looking at how much cards are in Premier and in Golden Elites versus 3 months ago. It's about half as many cards. Each of these platforms are selling less and less cards each month. I'm sensing the supply going down. I'm sensing collectors like myself treating the space similarly to the way they did in 2018 and 2019. I'm seeing people buy cards like Tim, Exquisite Collector, buying the number of pieces of LeBron. He's using this moment in time to go and buy that card. That thing is sold like 6 times in the last year. Why is he buying it now? Why did I buy the LeBron RPA now? Why? So these are just, you could say it's like I'm just wanting cards to go up in value, but these are things that I'm sensing with experience I have in the hobby, and I'm ready to start this choo-choo train.
Yeah, for sure. And, a lot of these cards, when I look at the sales histories of them, like, let me just see if I can pluck out a rant. Yeah, this is perfect. So one of the cards that sold was the 1969 Topps Jerry Lucas PSA 10 Pop 2. All right, that sold June 4th for $84,000. The prior sale was August 1st of 2016. So there was a nice 7-year spread in between the sales of those cards. And that's one thing that I admire a lot about the vintage market.
Yeah.
Is that you might only get one shot at those cards. And that for 7 years, and then maybe you got to wait another 5 or 7 or 10 before another one comes out. And that's going to make for a really strong market, most likely. But the one thing that I would hate to see is if one of these or many of these got sucked into a flipper's vortex.
They won't, dude. There's no way.
Or if they were purchased on credit and then the loan gets called in.
Those aren't happening as much. Like, people just aren't doing that as much. Like, PWCC's cracking down on it. They're making people pay off those loans. Like, there's just a lot more fear around the loan right now. I just don't see, like, obviously it's still going to happen, but I just feel like the percentages are vastly shifting back in the other direction.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the other thing about vintage, one takeaway that I have is that vintage and the stuff I collect are two ships passing in the night.
Yeah, of course. I have no clue what any of this stuff is.
I don't know who wins these cards. I don't ever see.
Right.
I've seen more cars than cards posted lately on my Instagram feed. I don't know who wins these, right? I don't know who wins these cards. And, I don't know who the bidders are. I don't know who the big collectors are. I don't know who the big dealers are. It's just, it's a world apart from the one I exist in. And I've got tentacles in quite a few worlds of collectors. Michael Jordan collectors, 90s collectors, ultra modern, football collectors, ultra modern basketball collectors, and I have no idea who's buying it.
Do these sales give you confidence, or you're basically saying, like, I don't know what this means, moving on?
Personally, I take a great deal of confidence while also acknowledging that I don't know what's going on. But I love to see that Pete Maravich's best card is worth over $500,000. I think that's amazing. I love that. That's the assuming that card goes into a collection and it's cherished and that it belongs to somebody who values it at that level. I love to see that. That's sort of always kind of that's one of the things that drives me as a collector today, and one of the things that makes it hard to go to collect Michael Jordan cards is that I'm so motivated by wanting to have the best card of a player.
Yeah.
I'm so motivated by that. So, hey, Pete Maravich's best card is worth $552,000. I love that. It gives me hope that other players' best cards can achieve that type of status too. But
Dude, that Jerry West is like his third best card or whatever, you know?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, but that's the other thing too, is that like, I don't know who's buying these. Some of these, like, take your pick, all of these cards are like, this is not an atypical multiplier. The multiplier on this Willis Reed 69 Topps PSA 10, it sold in 2016, as most of these did. It sold for $12,000 in 2016, and then it sold for $150,000 last night. I mean, that is an absurd rate of growth. That's a
Yeah.
rate of growth is 1,100%.
You see those types on like the green PMG Jordans, don't you? They sold for like $9,000 and then they sold for fucking 300 or whatever Nat paid, like it's happened.
Yep. Absolutely. But
So now we're talking about like the truly like scarce cards of the best players in the world. These are like crazy cards.
Yep. Okay. So there you go. A little bit of banter about that stuff. A little bit out of my wheelhouse, but cool to see. All right. Leather Helmet Cards says, we all want to smash bin when we see a card that we love. But what are the knock-on effects or the risks of doing this? What do we knowingly or unknowingly accept when we smash bin? Depending on the card, top of mind would be shifting that player's market in a new direction or setting a new benchmark.
I'm always worried that when I smash the bin, another copy's going to show up at auction 2 days later, and I just like triple overpaid what the auction's going to sell for, and nobody's going to care about my comp.
Yep. Yep. That's for sure true. And then the other side of that coin is that if that comp gets set, then other similar cards, the ask goes up, the ask goes up across the board. So like makes it harder to get other ones once that comp is on the books.
Yep. Or you buy a card of a semi-obscure player, and then you go to buy another one, and you make the offer on eBay, and you message them, and they're like, well, I just saw this card sold for 5 times what I thought it was, so that means mine is. And you're like, that was me. I'm the only one crazy enough to do this. I'm the one driving the market. You're only going to get these offers from me. So take what I offer.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Leather Helmet Cards with another question says, what is your perspective on buying multiple copies of the same card? Is it the value that makes it enticing, or can you simply not resist the aesthetic? The hoarding. Why do people hoard?
I don't know. You tell me, hoarder.
Dude, I've had a real revelation ever since this topic kind of started coming up on Crossover, is that I've been asking people, like, what do you think about hoarding or people buying multiple copies of the same card? And people hate it. They think it's awful. And it's just funny because like 2 of the Michael Jordan collectors that I admire the most do a decent bit of hoarding. They get like multiple copies of stuff. And I just always thought, yeah, okay, that's normal, that's cool. But no, now as I ask people, I haven't found a single person who I've just asked the question to and they're like, yeah, it's great.
Well, me included. It's not great. I hate it, but I accept that you're allowed to do it and it happens and it's reality, but it bothers me.
Yeah, no, it's fair. Once it was put into perspective for me of like, well, one person has 4 PMG greens of Jordan. I was like,
Yeah, how's it feel, motherfucker? The shoe is on the other foot now, isn't it?
Exactly. But I will admit, I will confess that it doesn't really impact me getting multiple copies of like, if another Jokic Prism Gold shows up and I already have 3 of them, I'm going for that 4th one. You can beat me, but good luck. I'm still going for it. Like, but I admit it, and I admit that I need to figure out my stance on it because, like, if enough other people, especially people I respect, are saying no bueno, I got to take that very seriously. So
I just feel like the hobby would be better off if 3 of my favorite MJ collector accounts had a PMG green, and that guy didn't have 4. It would make me feel better about the hobby. Like if you, MK, and I mean Rodman's lost this seat. He doesn't get that 4th one anymore. He's like a messy sellout trader scumbag.
He's at the kiddies table now.
So whoever is the 3rd person that we nominate, do you agree with my first 2? If there was a 3rd person that we nominate and we figure this out, I would just be so happy. It would give me great joy knowing that 3 people now own the green PMG and they're on this new level of MJ collection that was previously unattainable. It gives more confidence to the entire MJ collecting community that it's possible. I don't know, I like that sort of end user on that topic of the end user, like having 3 more end users own that card versus one guy that's like, yeah, I've got 4. I know it annoys everybody. I don't care.
I mean, especially when it's like a best of a best card. Yeah, it'd be really nice to see those spread around a bit more. I think maybe that's the distinction I draw is that, like, I'm not in a position to hoard grails. Like, I can hoard cards maybe that are a few grand,
Sure.
But I can't hoard, PMG greens of any player. So,
by my logic, the person who owns the 4 green PMGs, if he used my logic, he never would have owned 4. He would have just had 1, and those 3 would be who knows where at this point. Whereas now he still has the 4. He still is controlling where they go. He's obviously made a lot of money by holding the 4. Like, I get it. I understand it.
Yep. Indeed.
Well, Carvin asked you a question. Chris, would you trade your Jokic Black Prism 1 of 1 for a green PMG MJ? Straight up.
I would, but I will miss owning that card, though. But I would have.
Nope. You're supposed to hate that card. What are you talking about?
I know, that's what makes it. I would definitely come to hate it. But I know right now it's like that's tough. That's a really tough one. But no, I would. I mean, the MJ PMG green is the best non-1 of 1 Michael Jordan card ever made. So
you could probably
to be on the list of people who owns that card. But you know what makes owning that card a little bit less exciting is the fact that one person has 4.
You'd rather have a Flair Legacy masterpiece than the green PMG?
I wouldn't, but I want to live in a world where I wouldn't.
Wait, say that again?
I would much rather have the MJ PMG green out of 10.
But
I want to live in a world where the Legacy Collection 1 of 1 is the better card than the PMG green.
Gotcha. But because you respect the rules and boundaries, your brain is like, I have to have the green. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Wow, look at this guy. You're bucking your own desires to get in line and follow the rules. You are such a square.
Yep. I'm growing old and boring.
What if the red was at a 10 and the green was at a 90?
That'd be better aesthetically.
You'd be happier because you already have the red.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have a red then, But I would be happier if both those things could be true. Let's talk about this. How did the PMG green become Michael Jordan's best card? Let's say. Why? If we were to list the rules that teach us why the PMG green's the best card, what are
Rarity.
Rarity, yep, out of 10. And the only rare Michael Jordan cards from the 90s that are not upper deck, like one-off sets, or not one-off sets, but like obscure upper
starting
deck.
starting five and all that bullshit, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't even going to say, but yeah, you have Hoops starting 5, which is out of 5. You have Essential Credentials now out of 9. And then I think you have 7 playing years, 1-of-1s.
Why? So why is the green beat all those?
Yeah.
That's your question?
Others. Why does it be? So no, I would just explain the rarity concept. There's only 9 cards that are rare from the 90s that come from the, non-upper deck brands.
I think there's a bunch of reasons. It has a lot of set collectors, namely Nat is going for it, brought a lot of attention to it. I mean, they look incredible. They're just really nice looking cards. They're shiny. They remind us of the sort of rarity of the current modern day parallels, and it kind of gives us the sense that it was the first rare parallel out of 10. It has the contrast of the base and the 1 out of 90 to give us this, baseline of this one's actually a lot rarer. It's consistent, whereas Credentials jumps around and it's a little bit confusing. Some players are 9, 8, 7. That makes it a little bit more ambiguous and confusing. Whereas the 10 is consistent. It's got nice relation to the 90, like I said. I think all those play into it.
Yeah. Does the fact that it's the first year of PMGs, there was 1 year of precious metals, but it's the first precious metal gems. Is that one of the rules that makes it very desirable?
Yep.
This is the stuff that makes the hobby amazing, but also worries me a little bit right now. Is that it's kind of hard to give a knockdown set of objective rules. It always sort of comes back to something sort of subjective, something sort of intangible, something we all just kind of know, but don't know why we know it.
Right.
It all kind of comes back to that, and that yeah, it's the history factors is a big part of it. Just things happen the way they happen. The demand for those cards unfolded the way it unfolded. And now all of a sudden, it's seen as his best card. And people will spend their hard-earned money in line with that.
There's very few cards that when I come across them, I stop and I'm like, holy shit. And that one is on the short list. It's just we've seen a lot of cards. We've seen a lot of cards sell multiple times at auction. The Now and that one and masterpieces and stuff like that. It's those cards are just, they're insane. I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that, MJ doesn't really have a cool rookie card. It doesn't have a rare rookie card. So this is kind of, it just keeps adding to the allure of that card that's his best card, because he doesn't really have a rookie card you could say is his best. His post-playing year, he doesn't have Exquisite until post-playing year, so this is really kind of the hyper focus of MJ collectors is that 90s stuff, and this is the best of the 90s. So
absolutely. All right, Hauser 1921 collection says this misconception that the market is down or corrected means that investors can't make money probably aren't aware of penny stocks. So he's saying the misconception is that the market is down, therefore investors can't make money. He's saying that's a misconception because he's saying people aren't aware of penny stocks. People made money as long as they enter and exit correctly, which is obviously easier said than done. Also, these so-called collectors that only want to collect their cards and be left alone might be missing the glaring issue of how hard it would be to ever acquire these true grails that they want so bad. Investors moving the markets can cause someone to sell that might love the card or player but not enough to hold, which would allow the one person that wants it to have it the most. What are your thoughts?
Man, that's a great point. I mean, I just kind of like agree with a lot of that. I don't know that there's much to add.
Yeah. Yep. There's definitely some interesting thinking going on there. It touches on the fact that collectors need cards to come to market.
Yeah.
They need that to be able to happen to build their collections, especially if you're collecting stuff that was released 20, 25 years ago. You know, like, there's not even a chance that it's going to be hit in a break or opened in a store, you know, and then it goes to somebody who doesn't really want it, you know, and then they sell it. There's not even a chance of that happening. So you do need something to induce people to sell their cards once in a while. I think the difficulty here that the question asker might be overlooking is measuring or properly balancing how often and how frequently these cards fall into the hands of investors, and then how often or frequently investors decide to bring them to markets to make their return. Because if you have a market that's completely populated with investors, at some point, you know, somebody gets stuck with a hot potato, assuming that the pretense of the investor is that they don't actually want to own the card, they want to own the profit that they think they can make by speculating on it. So
Right.
As much as this question implies correctly that the collector needs the dealer, the flipper, the investor to help induce these cards to come to market once in a while, the flip side of the coin is that the dealer, flipper, investor needs the collector to be an end user of the card to give it a sustainable value over the long haul. And then the question is, what's the right proportion? How many collectors on the one side should there be versus investor, flipper, dealers on the other side? That's the thing that needs to be sorted out.
Well, it's true that, you know, the investor flipper market causes cards to go up in value, which then brings cards out that makes it possible for me, the collector, to obtain them. But also, as the price goes up, it actually becomes also harder for me to obtain it because it's more money. So it's like it's a two-way thing there. It's more. I see more of them. I have more chances to buy them, but they're actually more expensive, so I can't afford them.
Yep. Right. It's a good question. Good thought. Okay. Wow, we already kind of touched on this, but no, we didn't actually. Stacking Gem says, what would be considered the number one basketball grail card to ever exist? Is it the 97 green PMG Michael Jordan?
We're saying a hypothetical card or a real card?
Well, he says to ever exist, a real card. A real card. He's saying what's the top basketball card ever made?
Can I say it's a tie between two cards?
Yes, you are allowed.
All right. My two are the MJ Gem Master 98-99.
Nice. I like that.
And the LeBron Ultimate Logo Man Auto PSA 9.
Nice. Very nice. Dude, I'm gonna trigger you right now.
Do it. Jerry West, PSA 10, 1969 top.
No. But I do have one vintage card that has a seat at this table, but it's not that. It's the 1948 Bowman George Mikan PSA 10.
Yawn.
Which is a pop one.
Oh, it
Last
is. Well,
last sold in 2015. Card letter value is $2 million.
woo. All right, trigger me.
It's not on the same level as the ones that you mentioned, but it has a seat at the table.
You say Luca Prism Black, I'm throwing my phone across this room.
Not that, but we're getting warmer.
Warmer? Oh, what? So it's modern. It's triggering me because it's like too modern for my liking.
And the player.
Oh,
And the player.
I know the
the Curry Super Refractor.
Or the Curry NTRPA logo man 1.
Yeah, you did trigger me. He's like the 13th best player in the NBA.
Yeah. No, I know. But I have to bring it up. I just have to bring that card up because it's those are pretty clearly his 2 best cards.
Yeah.
Doesn't really have any others on their level. But
It's hard because
like in baseball, the Wagner and the Mantle, right?
Yeah.
And neither of those players are the best baseball player of all time. Or maybe like the Ruth, like the Sporting News Ruth.
yeah, but like yeah. That's why I like for basketball. I would prefer to say the actual one of ones versus the PSA 10 cards. I just feel like if you're gonna make that claim that it's the best card, it can't just be. It needs all the factors to hit all at once. It's got to check every box, and one of those boxes has to be like print number.
Yep.
In my opinion,
Nope, I think you're right.
like the Mantle PSA 10 is sweet, but I see that card all the time.
Yep. Okay. Stiff arm wax. If you and Josh had to pick one, we get this question once in a while. I don't know if we've ever answered it completely yet. It says if you and Josh had to pick one player from the other's collection to collect, who would it be and why? And you obviously cannot select Jordan or LeBron. Hashtag Christina, don't fight the hypo. Well, first of all, let's give a list of who are the players that we consider PCs for ourselves. And I'll give mine. Outside of Jordan, there's Luka, Jokic, McCaffrey, Le'Veon Bell, Frank Ntilikina. And I know you're thinking hard about that, Frank. Those are the 5 I would say are PCs. And then I have like a Curry and a Lamar Jackson, some LeBron stuff, and some other players, but like I wouldn't count those as PC. And then who's your
I wish you had a Hakeem collection.
Who is on your list?
It's pretty slim these days. It's pretty much Penny and Todd Gurley. The Chris Paul thing is fading away from me as he's not on my team anymore, and I vastly lost interest after he went to the fucking Warriors.
Fair. Very fair.
Let's see. I'll take.
Mohammed says,
Are we saying?
Look, Mohammed says this is so easy. Oh, really? Who, Mohammed?
Are we saying this is like I get your collection, or I have to start collecting that player from scratch?
Let's say you have to start collecting that player yourself.
I'd probably say McCaffrey because I don't really feel like spending that much money on all those other guys.
That's interesting. Okay. I would go with Anthony Hardaway because of the 90s. The collecting PMGs and rubies and credentials and stuff.
See,
Which is a
Muhammad
weird answer.
didn't even listen to the rules. He didn't listen to the rules. He's like, this is easy. Yeah, because he didn't listen to the rules. The rules are we can't pick Jordan and
You know
LeBron.
what? Mohammed, you've been off your game a little bit lately, man. I'm not going to lie. You've been off your game a little bit lately, bro. He said we cannot do Jordan and LeBron.
Well, I don't like because you have to start from scratch. I don't know that I'd want to start collecting Jordan either. It's so tough. It's so hard.
No, it's true. That is really true. All right. And this goes back to that question before as well that's lost in the sauce of like, what do you like to collect that's not cool? Like, dude, everybody collects things that most other people don't want to collect. That's
Yeah. Like it would be really hard for me to start from scratch collecting MJ and just being a complete loser for like 10 years, 5 years. Okay, it's just like, wake me up in 5 years when you got something that'll impress me. I'm like, just let me win the lottery first, and then I'll come back and have a cool collection. My bad.
Yep, I hear you. All right. Drake's PC says, does anyone collect modern F1 anymore? I put this to a poll.
Did the influencers stop pumping that stuff? Is that why?
I guess so. But I put it to a poll. 24 people said yes, and 78 said no.
There you go.
But there's 24 people who came out of the woodworks to say yes. And I don't think there's anything about my personal Instagram page that's attractive to F1 collectors. So the fact that there's 24
right.
who are lingering and vote, or maybe somebody just sent that poll to the F1.
No. But the question, did the question say, do you collect it or do other people?
It says, does anyone?
Yeah, so this is like the question of like, does your neighbor do this?
Right.
So that's different. It's
Right.
still,
True.
I think that attracts more of the people that are like on the side of, do I want to take another shot at the influencers and make fun of F1 by saying no, or do I want to support the expansion of the hobby by saying yes? I take it that way.
Yeah. Like F1 has also settled into culture as well. Like the excitement from the documentary has passed. It's also a difficult sport to consume because it's on at such, unfortunate times. It's on super early on like Sundays and stuff, like 5 a.m. stuff. Onkesh points out that 24 people understood semantics because technically the question is saying, does anyone collect F1 anymore? And yes, there certainly is one person out there who is collecting.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the question, the way that you answer it is like, do I want to shit on F1 or do I want to be supportive of it? That's how I interpret it.
All right. Damn, we are at the end of the road here.
I just generally root against things that I feel are pushed by a majority of influencers, and I felt like F1 was a lot of influencers, so it's like the only thing I root against in the hobby is influencers.
Yep, I am not against you on that. Okay. Should we look? Brack's ball cards put a lot of effort in to coming up with a comment or a question. No?
It's like 7 pages. It's long.
Yeah.
It's funny though. I read it. It is funny.
All right, let me just. I'm going to reward the effort. All right, I'll do it. I'll go quickly. 1.5x speed. Brack's ball card says, "I'm currently trying to get a collector to sell me his collection so I can break it up and sell it for huge gains. It's a major play, bro. I keep showing him comps and making an offer at 70% because your boy Brax needs to get paid. But he keeps saying he wants full value. And I'm all like, bro, I need to make a profit. And he's like, bro, I'm into it for X and I need to make at least Y. And I'm like, bro, the market is down and I need to make a profit. And he's like, I can't do that, bro. And I'm just like, bro, really? So my question to you is, how do I talk to a collector and get him to sell his collection to me at a massive loss so that I can flip it for a massive gain? I'm just trying to make plays, bro. And this collector doesn't want to make a play. So come on, let's make some plays. Goats grind while sheep sleep. And when it comes to making plays, I'm the goat. Much love to you and all of my hobby fam and Brax Nation. But I really need advice on how to get this play across the finish line. Light him up."
So he's coming to collectors asking for advice on how to screw over another collector. Sorry.
I think that's the size of it.
Bro. I think he's barking up the wrong tree. That's pretty good though. That's good stuff.
Well done, Brax. All right. The show flew by. Also, weird viewer count on the show tonight. I don't think we've ever ended with a number higher than what we started with.
It's that Thursday night love. People like love. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, no, Thursday. I mean, it's, dude, in the post in a truly post-pandemic world, the Friday night red eye, it's about the worst time to do a show. So
Yeah, this is
everybody who's in here.
Us and the audience are the Spider-Man meme where we're like, you don't do anything on Friday nights? You don't do anything on Friday nights? Some of us have lives. We just sit here and...
You know what? I like that take. I think we're keeping people out of trouble in ourselves. We're making the world a better place by putting our live show at midnight Eastern.
Right. Making people not drive their cars, get in trouble at bars, getting into, other activities they shouldn't be doing. I like it.
All right, let's go over some titles here. Option 1, built for the hater. Or I'm sorry. Bait for the haters. Bait for the haters. Option 2.
You didn't even let me do my victory lap on NFTs this week because it's been coming back. And
dude, we can always make time for an NFT victory lap.
I feel like it's been, I don't know what happened, but something popped up this week. Articles are popping up. Justin Bieber's getting hammered. Freaking Tom Brady's losing on FTX. I don't know what's going on, what's in the waters, but NFT is taking a thrashing this week, and I'm here to pile on, take my victory lap. That's all.
Go for it, man. Let's go.
That was it. It was a fun week, enjoyable week, seeing that Bieber went from 1.3 million to $5 or whatever.
Jose says, little do you guys know, we're actually at nightclubs streaming the crossover.
We're the losers and everyone else is out there having a good time.
Touche, Jose.
So they're out. Them and Chase Rhymes are just on the clubhouse at the nightclubs, living it up.
Shout out to Chase, man. Chase, you know when we're going to know the bottom of all bottoms is when Chase Rhymes is back at the game, buying some new cards.
That's true.
Come on back, Chase. All right, so title number 1, bait.
Yep.
Bait for the haters.
Yep.
Number 2, you're collecting something people don't like. Number 3, the Flipper's Vortex. Number 4, logical rules for collecting. Number 5, it will not end well for me financially. Number 6, I know, Steph, I saw him. He was in here. I was trying to see if he's in here right now.
That's pretty good.
Number 6, despise what you cannot have. Number 7, the ass goes across the board. I just wrote that down when I saw Steph write that down. I don't know. I must have I must have transcribed that wrong. Number 8, thinking hard about that Frank. Okay. So what? It will not end well for me financially? Is that what we like?
Well, I'm noticing that literally every one of those was you, so you're only transcribing your own quotes now. So I got to start transcribing my own quotes so that we have a balance. I got you.
Let's go. I'm open to other titles.
What was the fourth one? No, what was the fourth? The Flipper's Vortex. That's the one.
The Flipper's Vortex? Okay.
Because it's like people won't know that we're mad about Flippers doing it because it's kind of vague, but we know.
Oh, Stiff says you are the one who said thinking hard about that Frank.
Thinking hard about that Frank? What is that?
I think it's in reference to whether or not you would collect Frank Ntilikina.
Oh, yeah. I was just kidding. I made up my mind to say that after I heard the first 2 weren't mine.
Fair enough. Okay.
Flipper's Vortex.
Flipper's Vortex.
And you could do
I like that.
the tornado. You could do the tornado emoji.
Tornado emoji. All right. Christina, you want to vote? Christina wasn't paying attention.
Just show her the tornado emoji and she'll laugh.
All right. Good show. Sorry we didn't get to all the questions. We still had a bunch of good ones this week. But send them next week. We'll try to get to them. All right. See you guys next week in Internationals.
reaching the top.
A lot has changed since Card Ladder began. We started with 500 cards in our database, and now we have over 3 million cards and over 30 million sales.
For anyone asking who is the best, we putting our hands up.
With Card Ladder's sales history feature, we have virtually every card in our system. If the card you are looking for ever sold on one of these platforms, you can find it using Card Ladder's sales history, and you can add a card to your collection with just one click.
My time, none of you people can tell me to stop.
Plus, every card, no matter the last time it sold, has an estimated value that we calculated using our state-of-the-art player indexes. Unlike other apps, when you see Card Ladder's verified checkmark, that means a researcher personally vetted each and every sale.
We know what it takes to be reaching the top.
We know what you want, because Card Ladder was created by collectors for collectors.
Know what it takes to be reaching the top.
Join the innovators, not the imitators. Card Ladder 2.0, constantly innovating. Try it for free. See why Card Ladder is the industry leader in sports card data.
We know what it takes to be reaching the top.
Card Ladder 2.0.